I didn't cry in the meeting. I saved it for the parking lot, where Florida heat turns breath into syrup, and the car becomes a confession booth. They assumed I'd stay quiet, because good girls, good writers, take their edits and thank you for feedback. They miscalculated. I started counting evidence instead. Hi, I'm Natalie, 32, a content writer in Tampa, Florida. If you've ever been underestimated at work, do me a favor, hit the like button and subscribe. I tell stories about what happens when the office sharks circle and what it looks like when we bite back. The first time I met Grant Mercer, he made budgeting sound like flirting. He leaned in, elbows on the polished conference table, and said, "Natalie, here's the thing about numbers. They're just stories with stricter grammar." That line worked on me. I'm a writer. I believed him, believed that we were partners. I produced the words, he shepherded the money. The company, Harbour and Hearth, a mid-market home services platform, with the bland logo of a blue house and a green leaf. Love to say we were one team. Finance sat 2 floors above us, in glass-walled calm, while marketing buzzed with open plan chaos and snack baskets. But Grant crossed floors like a diplomat. He laughed at our dumb meme channels on Slack. He remembered birthdays. He always had a solution. When my manager, Simone, asked me to lead the content strategy for our Q3 push, long-form guide, email sequence, social, the works, Grant was there with a spreadsheet that blessed it. "We'll carve out budget from underperforming paid," he said, tapping his laptop. "You show me the conversion proof. We'll make them eat their words at the QBR." It felt like a pact. Florida summer thunderheads were starting their afternoon routine, rolling in like stage curtains, when the first hairline crack appeared. We were 2 weeks into the campaign. My guides were getting 17% higher time on page than baseline. Our email's second nurture outperformed by 24%. I sent the report to Simone with the kind of breathless subject line that shows you still believe metrics will save you. Early wins. Simone's reply came at 8:47 p.m. "Great, let's review Thursday." Grant's came at 9:02 p.m. "Can we hold off on social boosts? Budget's tight, just until EOM." It didn't register as sinister. Budgets are weather, capricious, invisible, blamed. We adjusted. I rewrote copy to do more heavy lifting without paid fuel. I slept like a person who thinks work is fair if you do it well. The second crack, a one-on-one with Simone, where her eyes didn't match her words. "You're doing great work," she said, flipping her notebook open and closed. "But just a heads up, calibration's coming. There's chatter." If you've never been inside a calibration session, imagine mixing a roast and a horse trade. Managers shuffle names around a grid to hit quotas. Only so many exceeds. A healthy tranche of meats. And yes, a few below. They call it objectivity. It feels like haggling over people. "What chatter?" I asked. She smiled the way you smile when you hope your face says empathetic, but your body says, "Don't shoot the messenger." Nothing to worry about. Just stay the course. Let me handle the politics. I left her office with a knot behind my sternum that wouldn't unwind. Back at my desk, my friend Priya, data analyst, queen of weighted averages, my best lunch buddy, slid me a paper cup of black coffee like contraband. "Storm face," she said quietly. "Calibration," I said. Chatter. Priya's mouth tightened. "Do you want the straight tea or the soothing chamomile?" "The tea," I said. She lowered her voice. "Grant's been in Simone's ear, something about reallocating budget because of underperformance. Underperformance. We're up across the board. I know. But he's saying we won't have enough runway to prove it. He's pushing for your program to be sunset early, so he can reassign the dollars to demand gens. Something. Podcasts. A partner pilot." She rolled her eyes. "It's squishy, but he's persuasive. I felt a little dizzy. Why would Grant do that? Because Grant plays chess, Priya said, and the board isn't the metrics. It's the room. I went home and pretended not to be panicking. My apartment is small, a 1-bedroom near the river, but I keep it pretty. Plants, books, a chipped mug that says, "Commas save lives." The AC hummed its faithful hum. I put rice on to cook and forgot it until the pot hissed and burned. A black crescent on the bottom that wouldn't lift. I took a spoon to it anyway and forced down 3 absent mouthfuls before throwing it all out and sitting on the edge of my bed. Phone face down, hands in fists I didn't know I'd made. I wasn't naive about office politics. I just believed, stupidly, that being very good would keep me safe. That night, sleep came the way a stubborn cat comes. After you stop calling it, and only long enough to make you grateful. At 3 a.m., I woke up with a weird, cold certainty. They were going to take my project, and then take my rating. Not because of anything I'd done, but because someone had decided I was the easiest piece to move. They counted on my silence. I whispered into the dark. Okay, then I'll count something else. The next week was a study in the subtle art of being undermined. My budget request took the scenic route. Slack messages went unanswered in channels, where Grant was a fixture. On a comms deck review, Simone added a vague comment I'd never seen from her. Let's simplify. Too academic. The words weren't wrong, but the tone was. It was like being tapped lightly on the mouth in public. A tiny thing, unless you've been female in a room where tone is code for, we didn't like that you were good at this. I switched from fluffy optimism to measurable ferocity. If you've ever done content, you know there's the story you tell, and the story the numbers tell. I let the numbers speak. I built a living dashboard. I pulled day-by-day conversion. I trendlined unsubscribes against subject line sentiment. I tracked lead quality ranking. After Nurture 2 versus Nurture 3, I stitched it into a case like embroidery. Priya helped. She watched me build, eyes sharp. You're building a fact wall, she said. Exactly, I said. When they say feelings, we'll have stone. I smiled without humor. And timestamps. 2 days before the end of the month, Simone called me into a conference room whose door never closed right. You had to pull it until it sighed into place. She closed it anyway, and the sigh sounded like resignation. I'm sorry, Nat, she said. We have to pause your program. My mouth opened and closed. Pause? Budget, she said. We're under budget, I said. The dashboard is in the green. The cost per lead is lower than projected. We're beating the control by, I know, she said. But we have to shift dollars. To what? I asked. She didn't answer. Or maybe she did, and I didn't hear because the world was roaring. That roaring you get when your body starts deciding whether to fight or quit. I gripped the edge of the table. And my performance review? Simone's lips parted. A flick of her gaze. A tell I'd learned in a dozen one-on-ones. Towards something she couldn't say. We'll talk in the cycle, she said. You're a strong performer, Natalie. None of this is personal. Oh, I said, with a small weird laugh. It's just my performance and my project. Not personal at all, she flinched, as if I'd made something dirty by naming it. Please don't make this harder, she said quietly. Let me do what I can. I nodded because there was nothing else to do. I stood up on knees that wanted to become water and left the room, past the wall of motivational quotes we never looked at, down the hall that smelled like lemon cleaner and stale coffee. At my desk, my monitor had gone black. I tapped the spacebar. The machine thought about it. A pulse of blue. Then Slack bloomed back to life, and a DM I wasn't expecting blinked at me. Check your email. Forwarding something you need to see. Delete after. It was from Mia, a project manager in demand gen, whose desk looked like a Target end cap, and whose laugh could carve stress in half. Mia and I weren't close, but we'd swapped eye rolls often enough to be friends. The email landed 30 seconds later. Subject: Seriously delete after. One attachment. A screenshot of a text thread. I clicked. The photo was grainy. A picture of a phone taken by another phone. At the top, a name. Grant M. below. A blue bubble. Simone, we need her at meets. Trust me. If we flag her as exceeds, I lose the argument to cut that content budget, and Gideon is going to have my head. A reply. This isn't a great time to... Blue bubble again. She's not political enough to fight it. She'll take the feedback. It was like reading a diagnosis and recognizing your symptoms all at once. I sat very still, the way you do when a glass on the edge of a table starts to wobble, and you don't want to startle it into falling. I swallowed. Who took this? I typed to Mia. Don't ask, she replied. But you didn't get it from me. How long has this been going on? Longer than you think. I stared at the screenshot until my eyes burned. Somewhere down the hall, someone laughed. The sound clanged against the inside of my skull. I closed the email. I reopened it. I saved the attachment to a folder I renamed Dentist Receipts. Because if I was going to start counting evidence, I might as well label it like a boring adult chore anyone would ignore. That night, sleep did not come. I lay awake and watched my ceiling fan do its tired orbit and catalogued everything I'd given this company. Weekends, award-winning copy that had people DMing me to say they felt seen, quietly fixing other people's grammar because it mattered and because it didn't. I thought about Grant's line, numbers as stories with stricter grammar, and felt a rush of heat so powerful I kicked off the sheets like something was smothering me. Morning brought a kind of chilled clarity. I texted Priya. Lunch, roof deck, 12:15. Need truth. We ate in the partial shade. Napkins weighted with water bottles, because Tampa wind can rip a napkin skyward like it's nothing. I showed her the screenshot. She shut her eyes for a second, like a prayer. They put it in writing, she said softly. Texts, I said. I don't know if it'll stick. Doesn't matter, she said. It's a thread. You pull it. More comes with. Her voice was steady. Mine was not. I feel stupid. I thought Grant wanted to win, she said. He does. He wants to win in rooms you don't get invited to. I picked at the label on my bottle until it lifted in a curl. I can go to HR, I said. But they'll say it's a misunderstanding, or tell me to be careful about tone. Or, Priya said. We can make sure this isn't just a complaint. It's a case. She hesitated, studying my face, as if weighing how much of a secret to share. There's something I haven't told you. I looked up. I've been recording, she said. My heart lurched. Priya, Florida is two-party consent, she said calmly. I know, and I ask, every time. Do you mind if I record for accurate minutes? They all say yes, every time. Grant too. He's addicted to his own take. He likes hearing himself later. My mouth went dry. You have recordings of him talking about this? She held my gaze, her expression doing that precise thing it does when she's dropping a metric that will end an argument. I have his voice saying your program is a casualty, so Gideon can have podcast budget. I have Simone pushing back, lightly, and Grant telling her that calibration will take care of Natalie, so it'll be easier to cut without blowback. I have timestamps, Nat. The world did that weird, dangerous brightening it does, when a door you hadn't hoped for swings open. Fear and anger, and a feral kind of relief, rushed me at once. Why didn't you? Because I didn't know if you wanted to light the match, she said. And because, once you do, there's no unlighting it. A gull screamed from the river, slicing the moment into hard little pieces. I pictured the QBR coming up in 2 weeks, where we were meant to present numbers and high fives, while executives drummed their fingers and asked how we'd move the needle. I pictured Grant sitting in the front row, sleeves rolled, his face arranged in attentive fairness, I pictured the projector. I closed my eyes and saw the text thread giant on a screen. Priya touched my forearm. "If you want it, I'll share everything," she said. "But you need to be ready. They'll say you're dramatic. They'll say you violated trust, even though you didn't. They'll tell you to be professional. They'll try to make you apologize for making them uncomfortable." I opened my eyes. The sky had gone from punishing to pale. The heat dialed back just enough to feel like an omen. "I'm done apologizing," I said. "I want the files." "Okay," she said. No smile, not yet. "Then we do this right." We finished lunch and didn't linger. Back at our floor, I passed Grant in the hallway. He gave me that companionable nod that sees we're co-conspirators in something fun and secret. I returned it without smiling. His eyes flicked to my blank expression for a second too long. He moved on. In the late afternoon, Simone called a team huddle to align on messaging. Alignment is corporate aspirin, handed out for migraines caused by blunt force. We circled around a high table. Someone joked about needing espresso OVs. Grant drifted in and leaned sideways, casual. "Pause doesn't mean failure," he told the group. "It means we iterate." "We were iterating," I said. He looked at me, patient, like a math teacher with a favorite student. "Natalie, no one's questioning the quality of your work, just the funding to keep it alive," I said evenly. Something slick moved behind his eyes, like a shark under glass. "It's not personal," he said. "Oh," I said, and felt that unwinding knot thread itself into a wire. "Then you won't mind if it gets very public." A few people laughed weakly, thinking I'd made a joke. That exchange of small office gallows humor. "We do to survive," Grant chuckled obligingly. Simone glanced at me, a flicker of warning, then back at the agenda. I went home with Priya's files on an encrypted thumb drive, nested in a Ziploc bag, zipped into the padded pocket of my laptop sleeve. When I slid it in, my hands were trembling. I took them out and studied the shake, like it belonged to someone else. It was my body reminding me, this is not a story you're reading. It's one you're in. I set water to boil and didn't forget it this time. I ate slowly, deliberately. After, I sat at my desk and started a document called Exhibits. There would be a table of contents. There would be sections. There would be proof. Exhibit A, the text thread screenshot, annotated with dates. Cross-referenced to the budget reallocation request, that approval flow, timestamped 42 minutes later. Exhibit B, the recorded meeting transcript, with the part where Grant said, "Calibration will take care of Natalie," highlighted, with the notation, "consented recording." For the audio, I would use the transcript in the deck and bring the file to HR. I could already hear them trying to make it about the recording, not the content. Fine, let's play by rules, but the words would be on the screen. Exhibit C, the performance dashboard, double-sourced, showing overperformance precisely at the moment of budget cut. Exhibit D, a politely devastating timeline, not snarky, not emotive, just the facts, stacked until they formed a wall even a smooth talker couldn't talk through. When I finished the skeleton, the clock said 12:41 a.m. I closed my laptop. I got into bed. Sleep came like mercy. The next morning, a calendar invite hit my inbox. QBR prep, final run-through. Presenter, me. Attendees, Simone, Demand Gen, Grant, and, oh, CFO, optional. Optional, my ass. He always opted in when there was blood scent in the water. I stared at the invite, feeling something settle inside me, like a coin dropped into a jar. This was the room. This was the moment. And then my phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. "Be careful with who you trust." I froze. "Who is this?" I typed. 3 dots. Then, "You'll see." My mouth went dry. I walked to Priya's desk, held up my phone. She read, frowning. Mia, she guessed. I shook my head. New number. Priya's jaw worked. Whoever it is, it means they know something, which means they'll make a mistake, which means we can catch it. I finished. We looked at each other, a tiny feral grin, threatening to break the surface. I opened a fresh page in my notebook and wrote, "They counted on my silence. I will count everything else." Then, below it, I wrote the last thing I expected to write that week. Trust the ally who brought the light, because while I was stitching together my case, while I was turning pain into precision, someone else was doing their own stitching. And when their thread met mine, the whole thing would rip wide open. To do that, I would have to walk into a room where the projector throws truth, too big to dodge, and press share screen. The day after the anonymous text, the air felt wrong. The humidity had teeth. Even the elevator seemed to breathe heavier. Doors dragging as if the building itself didn't want to take me to the floor where my name had become a bargaining chip. I opened my laptop to a new Slack reality. I'd been removed from this paid strategy channel. No announcement, just gone. A side thread, previously mine, was now owned by Tessa from Demand Gen, with a chipper message pinned to the top, picking up Natalie's initiative while we're orient. No mention. No thanks. Just a beige little coup. I messaged Simone. Removed from paid channel. Was that you? Her typing bubble pulsed. Stopped. Started again. It was a cross-functional decision. Let's talk later. I stared hard enough at the screen to see my own reflection ghosting back. Tired eyes. A mouth that didn't know how to be neutral anymore. Cross-functional is what they call it, when they want you to feel like the whole village voted you off the island. 10 minutes later, a calendar invite popped up. Communication coaching, optional. Organizer, HR, attached note. We're offering this resource to help high performers navigate difficult conversations. High performers navigate difficult conversations. I wanted to throw my laptop through the glass wall and watch it spider in 1,000 pleasing lines. Instead, I swallowed my rage, because rage has a way of getting repackaged with a bow, labeled unprofessional. I wrote back, "Thank you, but I'm at capacity this week. I'll reach out when bandwidth opens." Bandwidth. Capacity. I hid my words in their words, and it still felt like a trap. Mia appeared at my desk with a bottle of water and a warning look. "He's rewriting your narrative," she said without hello. She perched on my guest chair like a bird ready to fly. Gideon asked for a pre-read. Grant sent a deck. "My deck," I said. "His cut of it," she said. "Want to see?" "Obviously." She handed me her phone under the desk, like we were in 8th grade. A picture of a slide, white background, corporate font, content pilot, promising hypothesis, insufficient alignment, bullet points that looked bland until you realized how surgical they were. Our wins were downplayed, our misses magnified. Timelines shifted by just enough to make graphs seem less bright. A neat little line at the bottom. Recommendation: reprioritize to proven channels in Q4. Proven. The word made me want to bite something. "Where did you get this?" I asked. She lifted one shoulder. "A friendly ghost in finance. Don't ask. And please delete this from your brain when you're done." "Does Simone know?" I asked. "She knows the tone," Mia said carefully. "She doesn't see the footnotes." The footnotes. That's where the knife always lives. I messaged Priya. "We need to talk about the Gideon draft." Her reply came fast. "Already saw metadata. Grant made himself owner of the doc at 11:38 p.m. last night. He removed your edit access at 11:41. My stomach did a slow, cold roll. He took my name off my work. Not exactly," she typed. "He left your name on the slides that mention room for growth." I laughed. A single hard bark that made Mia flinch. "Sorry," I said. Not at you. Mia's eyes softened. It's okay. We're at war, and the weapons are spreadsheets. I went searching for Simone. Her office door was half closed. She waved me in without looking up. Papers, the analog kind, lay in small, orderly stacks. She only used paper when she was stressed. It forced her to touch something real. Why am I out of my own deck? I asked, not waiting for preamble. She rubbed her temple. Grant is consolidating for QBR. You know how he is about consistency. Consistency is not the same as control, I said. We have the numbers. He's flattening them into a story where I am a cautionary tale. I'm trying to protect you, she said quietly. It almost undid me, the gentleness of that. By letting them do it. By way of answer, she swiveled her monitor toward me. An email chain with the subject, Calibration Framework. Names blurred into acronyms and boxes, but mine stood out. A row with my projects listed off to the side, and a column with a drop-down. Exceeds, meets, below. Next to my name, meets highlighted in corporate blue. You've already calibrated? I asked, throat tight. The meeting is tomorrow, she said. This is the straw poll, and you voted for that. I voted for keeping you safe, she said. Exceeds with a program that's been paused is a fight I can't win, and a target on your back for Q4. My hands went cold. Safe is how they keep women small, I said before I could swallow it. You know that, right? Simone winced the tiniest bit. Please don't make me the enemy. I pressed my lips together until they hurt. I'm not. I'm just done being the polite casualty. She looked at me, like she wanted to believe me, but had seen too many people flame out trying to change the weather. Be careful, she said softly. Someone else already told me that. I said, I'm done being careful. I'm going to be precise. Back at my desk, I opened the document I'd started, Exhibits, and began stitching in uglier thread. I pulled the slide Mia had shown me into a folder and ticked it as a derivative of my original file, with the timestamp proving custody. I added a section, Narrative Drift, with 2 columns, Original Metrics versus Pre-read Summary. The contrast sang a song only a CFO could love. The one where misrepresentation lives in adjectives. At noon, HR pinged me. Hey Natalie, could you pop by? 10 minutes. The room they put me in was the kind that tries to feel neutral. White walls, soft chairs, a fiddle leaf fig that had given up 2 leaves to whatever the office air does to living things. Elena, our HR partner, smiled with concern, calibrated exactly to company brand. I've heard some. Friction, she said. Friction is one word, I said. I want you to know you're valued here, she said. And we're committed to your development. Is my rating already decided? I asked. We don't discuss ratings before calibration, she said. I can say you're recognized as a solid performer. Solid, I repeated. She crossed her legs at the ankle. In situations like this, we often find that communication styles can differ across teams. Finance is very data-driven. Have they shared different data than mine? I asked. It's not about right or wrong, she said quickly. It's about impact. It took everything I had not to laugh. Then I'll show impact, I said. In the room where they can't edit the adjectives. Her eyes flicked. She was good. She didn't look spooked, just alert. I'd advise against any surprises in the QBR. Leaders don't respond well to being put on the spot, leaders. I thought of Gideon's tidy suits and the way he said, learnings, like it had a Z in it. I thought of Grant's open collar and performed humility. Sometimes the spot is the only place where truth doesn't get passed off to later. I said. Elena folded her hands. Natalie, she said gently, you don't want to be known as difficult. I want to be known as accurate, I said. If that's difficult, we have bigger problems. After, I walked the long way back to my desk to cool down. The floor smelled like toner and lemon. Someone had burned microwave popcorn again, and the aftertaste hung low. People's voices sounded like radio through fog, only half heard because my body had decided to narrow the world to what it could survive at Priya's. I closed the door and let my anger show. They're going to call me dramatic if I show up with receipts, I said. They're going to call me naive if I don't. Priya didn't flinch. Then we build redundancy, she said. Multiple proofs, multiple angles. You're not a singular story. You're a system. She opened her laptop and started typing, fast. We back up everything offline. No live docs. They can revoke access, change owners, edit last modified. We're not giving them that lever. I'll export the dashboard to CSV and PDF. I'll notarize the digital signatures. Notarize. I blinked. Hashing, she said. It's geek notarizing. It proves a file hasn't been altered since a specific time. It's boring. It's deadly. I felt something in my chest, unclenched by a millimeter. What about the recordings? They're consented, she said. But we use transcripts in the big room and retain audio for HR. We do not play the tape in the QBR. We show the words. The sound will live in their heads anyway. What if they shut me down? I asked. Priya's mouth tilted. They will. Plan for it. You need more than one way in. What does that even mean? Think like him, she said. He tells 5 versions of the same story and sees which room it sells in. You need 5 ways to tell the truth. She ticked them off on her fingers. The deck, the dashboard printouts on table tents, so no one can pretend they didn't see the numbers. An email to yourself with the files, time-stamped, +1 to Elena, with the subject, for the record. And she paused, a wicked light entering her eyes. And, I prompted, a short polite addendum at the end of the invite, added a brief appendix for transparency. I stared at her. You're evil. I'm thorough, she said, and I'm tired of pretty lies. I looked down at my hands. They'd stopped shaking. I could feel my pulse scoring a steady beat at my wrists. I'm terrified. Good, she said. Fear will keep you precise. That night, the storm finally broke. Lightning stitched the sky over the river. Thunder made the window glass shiver. I sat at my kitchen table with the thumb drive like a small bomb in the bowl next to my keys. I read the transcripts and found my own breath in the white space between lines. Grant, we just need to avoid creating a situation where she can argue exceeds. If we're aligned on meats, I can move the dollars. Otherwise, we're stuck pretending the pilot is viable. Simone, she'll ask why the KPIs are trending up. She has a dashboard. Grant, we'll say it's early and not reflective of true lift. I read that part 3 times. True lift. The arrogance of believing you can redefine reality if you find the right adjective. At 11:07 p.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number again. You're presenting Thursday. He's going to take your screen, I typed, fingers ice cold suddenly. Who are you? Someone who watches him work. The reply came. He uses the host controls to shut down share when the narrative goes off script. That stopped me. It was so specific it rang true. I thought back. Yeah, last quarter, when an engineer tried to show a bug in the live demo. Suddenly screen share glitched. And we moved on. Why are you helping me? I typed. The dots pulsed. Stopped. I'm helping myself. Came back. This place eats people who think they can survive on silence. Don't let him make you small. I stared at the message until the letters blurred. Then I did the only thing that made sense. I planned like a thief. Morning brought the kind of brittle calm that follows a night of weather. I wore my simplest outfit. Black dress, hair back. Nothing jangly. Armor that didn't clink. I printed copies of the dashboards and slid them into clear sleeves like they were evidence in a trial. Because they were. At 8 a.m., while the floor was still waking up and the coffee machine coughed like a smoker, I walked into the main conference room and stood under the projector. I found the input. I learned the remote. I tested the cable. I practiced plugging in my laptop and switching the source with one hand. It felt ridiculous, and it felt necessary. Like learning a fire drill route and praying you never need it. Early, a voice said behind me. I turned. Mia stood in the doorway, a box of printed agendas in her arms. Scout the exits, I said. Make sure they lock from the inside when you need them, she smirked. You're scaring me. I'm scaring me, I said. She set the box down and came closer. I need to tell you something before this snowball goes completely downhill. Her voice was low, careful. Grant and Gideon had a breakfast meeting. He indicated that if you escalate in the QBR, he'll bring up concerns about your stability. I stared at her, my blood lifting into a hot, bitter wave. What does that even mean? She looked uncomfortable. Last year, when you took that mental health day, the one you encouraged me to take. I know, she said. He called it erratic this morning. Gideon nodded. I closed my eyes for 1 second and let my body somersault through a small rage. I opened them and found Mia looking both sorry and furious in equal measure. This is why women email their own medical decisions to themselves. I said softly, "Thank you for telling me." "I'm sorry," she said again, the words clumsy in her mouth because they were too small for the thing they had to carry. "Don't be," I said. "Be ready. At 10, an email hit. QBR moved up. CFO attending in person. Please upload final deck to shared drive by 5 p.m. today." The words might as well have been written in siren red. The move up meant less time to meddle. It also meant less time for me to lose nerve. The deck upload requirement was the trap. Grant would consolidate again at the last minute and cut my appendix alive. I could see it like a map. I stood, walked to Priya's desk. They'll take my screen," I said. "They'll take my file. We need a way they can't preempt." She leaned back, eyes scanning me like I was a project plan, and she was on deadline. "Okay," she said. "We go analog, and we go redundant." "How?" 2 laptops. Your primary connected to the projector. A second one with a hotspot under the table, ready to tether, with the deck preloaded, she said. "If they kill the share, you switch inputs before they realize what you're doing. It has to be muscle memory. No fumbling." I nodded, picturing the choreography. "And if they cut power to the projector," she grinned, quick and mean. "They won't. Not with Gideon in the room and a schedule to hit. But if they do," she pointed to the stack of dashboard sleeves on my desk, "you hand those to the executives like hymnals." I almost laughed. "I'm going to church. Go preach," she said. "And Natalie? Yeah. Be boring first," she said. "Start with their template. Look safe. Make them drop their guard. Then turn the page." I spent the rest of the afternoon making 2 decks. One was theirs, tidy, muted, a funeral for nuance. The second was mine, hiding in plain sight behind a little tab, labeled Appendix Transparency. The cover slide looked like any other appendix slide we've all ignored for years. The second slide carried the text thread blown up to the size of a door. At 4:48 p.m., as I was zipping the thumb drive into my bag, my monitor flickered. A Slack DM from Grant. "Hey Natalie, appreciate your hustle. Mind if I run the deck tomorrow so we can keep flow tight? You can speak to your sections." It was nothing, and it was everything. He wanted the steering wheel. He always did. "Thanks, Grant," I typed. "I'll run my section as discussed. Appendix uploaded for transparency." He replied with a thumbs up emoji, the digital equivalent of a pat on the head. I closed Slack. I put my laptop in my bag. I stood and felt the weight of the plan settle into my muscles. Like a secret. On my way out, Simone caught me at the elevator. "You sure you want to do this?" she asked softly. "Not a dare, a plea. I need to look at myself after tomorrow," I said. "That requires the truth in a room where it counts." She nodded, a tiny grief-filled movement. Then be better than them, she said. Don't gloat. Don't burn so hot you scorch the wrong people. I'm not after collateral, I said. Just light. The elevator came. We stepped in. It hummed down, past floors where vaguely ambitious posters told us to innovate and collaborate and celebrate. The doors opened to a wash of heat and car exhaust, and that faint sweet stink of the river in summer. I got into my car. I put my forehead on the steering wheel and let myself feel the fear, so it didn't ambush me later. Hands trembling, I whispered it out loud. I am so scared. And then I said the second truth, the one that would steer me the next day when the projector hum became the only sound in a room full of eyes. I am ready. The QBR started at 9. By 9:02, every chair would be filled. By 9:10, I'd be taking them through the metrics. By 9:22, Grant would try to host control me back to silence. By 9:23, I needed to have the second cable in my hand. At 8:41 a.m., the projector hummed like a sleeping animal, and the conference room filled the way a tide fills a rock pool. Quietly, then all at once, leather chairs exhaled. Keyboards clacked. The CFO, Gideon, came in with his coffee and that polished stillness of a man whose calendar has never begged. Grant followed, sleeves rolled, forearms tan, smile preloaded to reasonable. Simone arrived last, jaw set, hair pinned like a decision. I'd been there since 8 pangs, practicing the choreography until my fingers knew it without me. Primary laptop cabled to HDMI 1, backup under the table, already hot, tethered to my phone. Deck preloaded to the exact slide. The stack of dashboard printouts sat in neat piles at each seat like hymnals. No one would be able to say they hadn't seen the numbers. Let's get started, Gideon said, low and crisp. Time is tight. He scanned the agenda like a conductor, checking the score before a symphony. Natalie, content performance first. Grant cleared his throat. I can run the deck, and Natalie can speak to her sections. Gideon gestured without looking at him. Let the presenter present. I felt the smallest bloom of air in my lungs, like someone had opened a window an inch. Thank you, I said. I kept my voice level, boring, the way Priya told me. Be safe first. Good morning. I'm Natalie, Content Lead. I'm walking you through our Q3 pilot. Slide 1, template, logos, and dates. Slide 2, top-line KPIs. Time on page up 17%. CTR up 18%. Unsubscribe down 6%. Slide 3, cohort quality. Lead scoring shifted Plero 0.4 in Nurture 2, Plero 0.7 in Nurture 3. Heads nodded in that unfocused exec rhythm. The one that says, okay, fine, keep talking, Grant interjected when my cursor hovered over the next section. If we could hold on the conclusions, he said, smiling at Gideon. It's early data. I smiled back with all my teeth. We'll get to the caution, I promise. I'd like to anchor us first. I held the room with what Priya calls voice math, the steady cadence of someone who's laid her numbers out like a path and knows the next stone will hold. By 9:18, the room had softened. I felt the chair back slacken, the shoulders loosen. The poor ficus in the corner seemed less doomed. I could feel Grant recalculating. He sat forward, one hand on the table, thumb circling his coffee lid, like it could cast a spell. And now, I said, a brief appendix for transparency. You could feel the energy shift. Executives hate appendices. They're where the snakes live. And yet, transparency is a word no one dares object to. It's the office equivalent of, for the children. I clicked. My cursor did not move. A small, polite black rectangle appeared at the top of my screen. You are no longer the presenter. It was a trick of light and software, but it felt like a hand on my mouth. Grant's voice was light. Looks like we're having a little share glitch. I can take it from here. My body moved before my fear did. Hand under the table, 2-finger tug on the backup cable, thumb on the remote, input switch, HDMI 2. The projector blinked, went black for less than a second, then bloomed. My backup laptop picked up the feed as if it had been waiting its whole life to be seen. The slide changed. The room sharpened. On the wall, 10 feet tall, a text thread sprawled across the white paint-like graffiti that knew grammar. Grant M. We need her at meets. Trust me. If we flag her as exceeds, I lose the argument to cut that content budget, and Gideon is going to have my head, Simone. This isn't a great time to Grant M. She's not political enough to fight it. She'll take the feedback. Silence is not quiet. It's crowded. In that moment, it was stuffed with the sound of throat clears that didn't happen, chair creaks that decided not to, a single betrayed pulse in the room's collective neck. Someone nearer the door whispered, "Holy," then swallowed the rest. Gideon's voice came out very calm. What am I looking at? I didn't look at Grant. I didn't look at Simone. I faced the wall like it was a witness stand, and I was giving the court an exhibit. A screenshot of a text exchange between Grant and Simone on date, I said. The date glowed on the upper corner, unmistakable. Immediately after this exchange, the budget reallocation request to pause my pilot was submitted. Approval flow timestamp. 42 minutes later, I clicked. Next slide, side by side. Left. The iMessage screenshot with message bubbles and timestamps. Right. The timestamp line item. Reallocation request. Project ID. My pilot name. The word pause in clean corporate caps. Underneath, a little annotation box with plus 42 minutes, like a surgeon had marked the incision. Grant gave a low, incredulous laugh. This is out of context. Context is next, I said. Slide. Consent transcript. QBR pre-read. Date, time. The words appeared in mono-spaced font. The way code does when it wants to look honest. Grant. We just need to avoid creating a situation where she can argue exceeds. If we're aligned on meets, I can move the dollars. Otherwise, we're stuck pretending the pilot is viable. Simone. She'll ask why the KPIs are trending up. She has a dashboard. Grant. We'll say it's early and not reflective of true lift. I didn't move. I didn't breathe loud. I let the line sit in the air until it gained weight. Who recorded that? Grant's voice had lost a shade of warm. It had a new brightness, a white edge. Every participant consented, I said. As we do for pre-reads. Elena from HR sat forward. I hadn't noticed her come in. HR has a way of infiltrating rooms like air. Is that accurate, Simone? She said, not taking her eyes off the wall. Simone's hand came up to her throat, and for a second, she looked very young. Then she lowered it and said, quiet but clear, yes. Those words were said. Gideon exhaled through his nose. A narrow sound that still managed to fill all the space. He half turned to Grant. Is there anything you want to say before we proceed? Grant's face did something subtle and ugly. A twitch of the jaw that never quite became a clench. He produced a smile with effort. I think we're in danger of turning an internal calibration conversation into a witch hunt. Ratings are complex. Budgets are fluid. Text can be misinterpreted. Numbers, I said, are stories with stricter grammar, right? That's what you like to say. He looked at me then. Really looked. If glare could put out a projector bulb, we'd have been in darkness. I clicked again. Dashboards. The same ones on paper in front of every exec, now writ large. The green bars didn't yell. They just were. Here is the performance at the moment of the cut, I said. Here is the account engagement score trend line. Here is the lead quality improvement. Here is the unsubscribe rate. Here are the benchmarks. I pointed, calm, never letting my voice rise. No one is claiming certainty in a pilot. I am claiming accuracy. The door opened quietly, and a latecomer slid in, the CFO's chief of staff. She took a seat by the wall and began reading the packet like a person diffusing something. I stopped on a slide titled, Sequence of Events. It was nothing but 4 dates, 4 actions, 4 timestamps. Request, pause, pre-read, calibration draft. I'd put no red boxes, no arrows, no editorialized italics. It didn't need decoration. It hung there like a spine. Gideon tapped his agenda with one blunt finger. I want to hear the rest of Natalie's presentation, he said. After that, we will address process. Grant opened his mouth. Gideon didn't even look at him. So I presented, hands steady now, throat open, the weird calm of a person who has finally said the unpalatable thing out loud and survived the first quiet. I ended where I had planned to end all along, before I knew any of this would happen. Recommendation: continue pilot with guardrails. Evaluate at 6 weeks with agreed KPIs. Then I put the remote down and folded my hands in my lap, like a student done with her book report. Thank you, Natalie, Gideon said. That was clear. He looked around the room, and his face changed in increments, the way men's faces do when they decide to be expensive with their words. Now we will take a 15-minute break. Grant, Simone, Elena, my office. Now. Chairs scraped. Paper rustled. Conversations tried to start and failed. Priya ghosted to my side and put her hand on the back of my chair without looking at me. Like a blessing you don't want to spook. Mia's eyes found mine. She mouthed one syllable. Wow! My phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. Clean switch. I stared at the screen. Heartbeat ticking in my mouth. I typed, "Who are you?" The darts pulsed. "A person who sits behind glass," came back. "Daylight looks good on you." I didn't smile. Not yet. That would be later, if later still existed. I lifted my water bottle and drank like I had been holding my breath for a week. And in a way, I had. Outside the door, thunder threatened the city in that theatrical Tampa way. Inside, the projector fan wound down, the light dimmed, and the words lingered on the white wall for a beat after the slide had gone. Like something burned into film, the 15 minutes stretched to 20. When the door finally opened, Gideon went first, expression neutral. Elena followed, her mouth a careful line. Simone looked like she had swallowed a storm. Grant came last, smile back in place. But the corners had started to crack. Let's resume, Gideon said. We're skipping to process. He didn't sit. He stood at the front like a teacher who has decided to change the lesson plan. First, ratings, he said. Effective immediately. Finance will recuse from calibration for teams where they influence budget decisions. Conflicts of interest are no longer theoretical. They're observed. Second, we will separate budget decisions from ratings in documentation and practice. Third, an external audit will review Q3 content budget reallocations. Fourth, we will use a standard consent statement for recorded meetings and retain transcripts with governance. He paused. I am not adjudicating intent in this moment. His glance skimmed Grant and did not stick. But I am adjudicating process. He sat. Continue with the agenda. No one dared look at me. It was a kindness disguised as indifference. By noon, the meeting was done. My section stayed in. The pilot stayed alive. The word meets did not get said out loud, and it did not get written anywhere in front of me. When we filed out, the hallway felt like air after rain, still humid, but honest. Simone touched my elbow. She started. The word caught on something. Maybe guilt, maybe relief. I know. I said it. I didn't say, I'm mad, or I get it, or we'll be okay. We were two women who had waded through different depths of the same swamp, and neither of us was clean. Thank you for telling the truth in the room. Her eyes filled with something complicated. You were better than me today, she said. I'll try to be better tomorrow. I nodded. That would have to be enough. Priya and I ducked into a micro conference room, the size of a walk-in closet, and leaned our heads against the cool glass door like teenagers who had just outrun a parent. We didn't speak for a minute. When we did, I said the only words that mattered. You, I said. You saved me. I'm not a hero, she said. I'm a witness. Sometimes that's the same thing, I whispered. Her phone buzzed. She read it, then tilted it so I could see. Elena, 2:17 p.m. HR investigation opened. Please retain all files. There was a second line, softer. And take the afternoon, okay? I exhaled so hard my ribs hurt. As I left for the day, the unknown number texted one last time. He'll call it a misunderstanding. He always does. Don't let them put it back in a drawer. I won't. I typed. I deleted the thread. Not because I didn't want it, because I'd already learned the important thing. Sometimes allies have to stay in the shadows to survive the same storm. We don't always need their names to know the shape of their courage. I got into my car, and for the first time in a week, I didn't cry in the parking lot. I just sat there and let the AC wash over my skin and watched a palmetto bug hustle under someone's Camry, like a tiny, unwanted after-credits scene. The projector had thrown daylight on a back-channel deal. Now we waited to see what daylight would burn. Corporate scandal doesn't break like glass. It seeps like dye. In the days after the QBR, you could watch the color spreading from office to office, meeting to meeting. People lowered their voices when I walked by, and then, slowly, raised them again. Curiosity curdling into a new normal. HR did not do the thing I feared. The long, soft suffocation of delay. They moved. Elena scheduled fact-finding interviews with the politeness of a funeral director. Priya handed over recordings and transcripts with version control and hashes. I steady. Mia provided the slide metadata and a quietly furious statement. He recast my colleague's results to match his budget, not the other way around. Simone sat with Elena, an illegal rep, for an hour and came out looking 10 years older. She didn't avoid me. She came to my desk and said, I told them what I did. It wasn't a confession. It was a surrender to the relief of no longer balancing on a lie. There were no dramatic perp walks. This is the corporate world. Consequences wear suits. Grant went on leave. The email was a masterpiece of passive voice. Grant Mercer will be out for an indefinite period. No mention of storms, or ethics, or texts that grow 2 stories tall. Just absence. The chairs in finance lost their loudest laugh and kept spinning. Gideon sent a company-wide note about strengthening our calibration. Integrity. He used the word integrity twice and transparency 3 times. He did not thank me. He didn't have to. The policies were the thank you. The new rules, read like the wall I'd built in Exhibit D, had become a hallway. On the 3rd day, Elena called me into a room with soft chairs and a bowl of mince no one ever ate. She sat with a folder on her knees and that careful look again. We've concluded the initial review, she said. We're engaging an external party to audit past decisions. In the interim, your rating has been corrected to exceeds based on performance metrics and manager feedback. The word corrected landed like something finally shifting back into its socket. Your pilot continues, she said. Budget restored. I waited for the but. It didn't come. Instead, Eleanor said, I want to acknowledge that we put you in an untenable position. You should not have had to present what you did in that room to be heard. I didn't cry. I did something stranger. I laughed, a short disbelieving sound that made us both look at the plant in the corner, like it might chime in with its own HR statement. Thank you, I said, because the script still matters. Then, what about the recordings? They were consented, she said. We will update our consent language to make that explicit and, off the record, Please know that the existence of transcripts saved us from a very long, he said, she said, that would have done everyone harm. In the elevator, I pressed the ground floor and closed my eyes. When the doors opened, Mia was there like a greeter for a new church. "Coffee?" she asked. It wasn't really a question. We walked to the place on the corner that smelled like sugar and burnt optimism and ordered iced lattes we didn't need. At the pickup counter, she turned to me and said, "It was me." "What was?" "The screenshot," she said. "I'm the one who sent it. My friend in finance took it during a happy hour. She thought it was gross, but she's got 2 kids and a mortgage, and a boss who collects grudges. She didn't want to be the face of it, so she showed me. And I showed you." I thought of the anonymous texts, the glass, the clean switch. I shook my head. "You took a risk," she smiled, small and stubborn. "We all did. I'm tired of men explaining my own work to me until it dies." I reached for her hand and squeezed. "Thank you." Back at the office, Priya was a fortress built of charts. She slid me a printout with a smirk. It was a 1-page lessons learned doc she'd written like a battle hymn. Document everything. Separate process from personality. Plan for the moment the story tries to eat the numbers. Carry spare HDMI. I laughed real and loud. It felt like oxygen. Grant never came back. The official story was a decision to pursue new opportunities. The unofficial story rode the elevators for a while, then settled into a fact. The person who tried to treat my review like currency got daylighted, and it burned. Simone started coming to my desk with questions instead of directives, not because she was cowed, but because she seemed to understand something new about where power lives. On the page, in the data, in the consent of the people doing the work. She fought for me in Q4, the way she hadn't in Q3, with notes that felt like armor instead of edits. Gideon asked me, quietly, so it wouldn't look like a win, to help draft the new calibration guidelines. I wrote a section called Conflict Walls and another called Transparency by Default. And in the header, I put a line so bland it hit its teeth. We will not allow budget to bias ratings, nor ratings to justify budget. He didn't change a word. As for the unknown texter, I never found them. Sometimes, when the afternoon light hits the finance glass just so, I can see shapes moving behind it, reflections blurring intentions into ghosts. I like to imagine a woman with a neat bun and a spreadsheet that could kill a man's career, typing with 2 fingers, because that's how you be both brave and careful. He'll cut your screen. Be ready. The pilot ended 6 weeks later with results no adjective could muffle. We beat the control by 19%. Lead quality didn't just hold. It climbed. The case study read like a vindication and a warning. The danger wasn't the data. It was the story someone wanted to tell about it. On a muggy Friday, Priya and I took our laptops to the roof to eat grocery store sushi and watch a storm flirt with the skyline and decide in the end to spare us. She tapped her can of seltzer against mine. "To stricter grammar," she said. "To stricter grammar," I echoed. We drank. It tasted like bubbles, and a life where I had learned that my voice could be a power tool, not a plea. Sometimes, in quiet moments, I think of what Grant said, that I'd take the feedback. He wasn't wrong exactly. I did take it. I took it and turned it into exhibits. I took it and made a wall. I took it and projected it 10 feet high, so it couldn't hide in the shadow of just business. I learned that revenge in an office is not a scream. It's a steady hand on a cable. It's a transcript with a consent header. It's the word appendix, hiding a blade. And the choice to cut only what needs cutting. And when the text thread hit the projector, excuses did die on contact. Not because anyone yelled, because daylight is louder than any voice I can conjure. Here's what I know now. the thing my sleepless nights bought me. Betrayal at work is more insidious than an affair. It courts you with we, then sells you for points in a room you're not in. The pain is chemical. Heart racing at midnight. Jaw clenched through breakfast. The static in your ears when someone says, "It's not personal," as they rearrange your future. The antidote wasn't fury. It was evidence with empathy. Priya didn't record to trap anyone. She recorded to be accurate. I didn't project a text thread to humiliate a man. I projected it to dismantle a lie. Simone told the truth in the room, even when it implicated her. And that matters to me more than whether she gets a neat redemption arc. Mia took a risk and chose solidarity over safety by silence. The anonymous ally behind glass proved that sometimes the opposite of complicity isn't whistleblowing at full volume. It's a single timely line. Be ready. Justice didn't arrive with fanfare. It arrived in policy updates and in the click of a rating toggling from meets to exceeds. In budget restored, in an empty chair on the finance floor. It arrived in my body too. My hands stopped shaking. My sleep returned like a friend who'd been watching the door. I didn't torch the place. I lit it, and then I stayed, because leaving would have turned my win into a warning. This way, my presence turns it into a precedent. If this hit home, if you've ever watched someone turn your work into their bargaining chip, tap like, subscribe, and share this with the one colleague who always keeps receipts. I'm Natalie, 32, Tampa, and I tell true stories about office sharks and the quiet ways we bite back. Drop your story in the comments. I'm listening.